aircraft and bring different airspace management solutions to test out what the future might look like. So one big thing that's recognized is, as we move into the future, we're probably not going to be able to have air traffic controllers sitting there talking to a human on board the aircraft to make this work at the density levels, the number of aircraft that we're talking about putting in the sky. So how do we get to the point where we have technologies that we trust that can safely make these aircraft interoperate with one another and stay away from things they're supposed to stay away from, go to the places where they're going to go, and make sure that they're all organized and managed in a safe way.
Many within the industry recognize the challenges ahead and are glad for NASA's involvement.
We've too often forgotten NASA. NASA, the first A is aeronautics, and NASA really serves a really critically important part. We really can't jump into making rules or regulating or all of that until we assess risk, until we have a good understanding of risk, we have a good understanding of the technology. So I think NASA is going to help us to really, in some ways, go into rulemaking, go into societal acceptance much better prepared. We're going to understand the risk, we're going to be able to quantify it, but these are the types of problems that NASA does well. We need NASA to help us to figure out these, what we always call the NASA hard problems. How do we do this? How do we do it efficiently? How do we do it safely? How do we do it more economically? So I'm excited. I think that the UAM community, the industry, if you can call it that now, is really doing this right by looking at NASA first. Before we jump into rulemaking, before we do all of the other things that unfortunately we've made the mistake in the past in aviation, I think we're doing it right. So I'm excited. I think this is the perfect role for NASA, and I'm excited that this could also possibly reinvigorate the aeronautics and the sort of terrestrial aviation side of NASA. So I'm excited about that work.
I think NASA has a few key roles to play. I think to the extent that they can dedicate their knowledge and experience in realizing visionary activities, I think this is an industry that really, really needs visionary governmental leadership. It needs it within communities, it needs it by the government, it needs someone to rally everyone around. I think NASA is a great organizing entity. They demonstrate that vision. People love NASA, so they love to get engaged. They have great community presence. And on the other side, they have an incredible breadth of knowledge around the technologies and enabling technologies that can make this happen. They're really one of our most valuable R&D assets that the federal government has. And in that sense, it's great to see them taking a leadership role in forums like this.
I think now we're on the cusp of it. I think we've got the great designs, and I think it's different than it has been in the past, since we have been talking about flying cars for decades. A lot of the technologies are now ready, the data processing, the materials, the manufacturing, the design tools, and the electronics and automation have definitely come a long way, that it is now the time to really push forward and make urban air mobility a reality. I think it'll be part of a bigger integrated system. So I think you'll have the cars, and you'll have enough cars to meet the demand. If the demand's large, you'll have a large number of cars. And cars are a definite personal statement. So I think you've got part of that, so people will want cars as a reflection and for ease and convenience. But it'll be part of a bigger transportation system, so you can take autonomous cars for trips that make sense for those. You'll have the subways and the buses and larger transport aircraft that go cross country. You have people that in the Midwest, where it is less densely populated, you've got much greater distances that you want to drive. If you're living in a smaller town that is significant distance away from a major metropolitan area, and you want to go in for a show, do some shopping or whatever, it's much more convenient for you to take an air vehicle from where you are to the city and back by driving a car and dealing with parking and all those other things. So you have much more collection of choices and the ability to pick which is right for what you want to do. Flying helicopters for 20 years, I do have a little bit different perspective than a lot of my colleagues. And being able to see the landscape from the air and knowing what some of the challenges are has helped, contribute to the conversation of what we think urban air mobility will look like. It'll be interesting because I think the weather we'll see in the future will be much more refined, and you will have reporting on microclimates, so you won't just get the weather for your entire metropolitan area. You can probably get the weather for your local 3 blocks and the next 3 blocks, and have much better predictive systems. to be able to plan your trip and to choose which mode of transportation is best for you.
So we're here now at the dawn of a new age of travel, ready to take the next steps. It may seem like science fiction right now, but perhaps in only a few years, this type of travel will be as commonplace as getting in your car is to you today. With the help of many thousands of engineers and planners at NASA and abroad, this science fiction may soon be science fact.